The swearing-in ceremony of Democrat Joe Biden as the 46th U.S. president is set to begin shortly. A truck convoy of oxygen tanks provided by the Venezuelan government arrived in the Brazilian city of Manaus. Heavy rains have caused widespread flooding at camps holding internally displaced persons in northwest Syria, killing one child and damaging or destroying the tens of thousands of families. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. In a few minutes, the swearing-in ceremony of the Democrat Joe Biden as the 46th president of the country and his running mate, the lawyer Kamala Harris, the first female, Black, and Asian descendant vice president in the history. For health security reasons and in view of the state of emergency decreed on January 6, only 1,000 people will be present at the ceremony, but it is estimated that there will be more than 41 million spectators. Donald Trump joins the list of presidents who do not attend the inauguration nor welcome the new tenants of the White House. Before him, 3 other residents and presidents did something similar. Experts said that this will be the most tense inauguration since the Civil War. The findings of the security services and the fragmentation left by Trump cover with an unprecedented mantle the Great Park that occupies the center of the capital of the United States, better known as the Mall. For the first time since 1789, there will be no public at the inauguration, instead of a gigantic field of flags. The only witness to the swearing-in of the second Catholic president of the United States will be the president of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, the congressmen, the foreign ambassadors, and the media pool covering the White House. And the eyes of the world are on the U.S. and the swearing ceremony of Joe Biden, who was the winner of one of the most contested and controversial elections in the United States. To offer more details about the event, as well as its relevance, we now receive our collaborator, Jorge Gestoso. Gestoso, be welcome.
Thank you, Gladys. In about 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes, President Trump will be leaving the White House for the end of his presidency, and he's going to be flying to join Base Andrews, a military base in the outskirts of Washington, where he's going to be taking the Air Force One for the last time of his presidency, and going back home to Mar-a-Lago in Florida. In the meantime, in the morning, the two of them were just about 100 yards away. President Trump was sleeping at the White House. President-elect until midday, Joe Biden was sleeping at Blair House, that is the house for the special guests. And they haven't talked yet. They have never been called Biden by Trump. But Biden is attending a church ceremony this morning, and he has invited the Republican leadership, both of the Senate and from the House of Representatives. Also, the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is going to be attending, a big gesture of trying to create union and eliminate that awful division and tension that Trump was creating along 4 years. At midday, it's going to be sworn in, and at the White House, Trump is going to be leaving the White House, as I was mentioning, but at the Congress, Joe Biden will be sworn in. It's going to be a ceremony with, as you said, very few attendants. There's not going to be any public in what is called the Mall, the piece of land between the Congress and the Washington Monument, and also the Lincoln Memorial, that normally is full of people. Now it's going to be just, for question of security and for question of COVID, just been closed, and it's going to be just 200,000 flags are going to be showing there. It's going to be a windy day. They say that it's going to be winds of about 40 miles an hour. Always the inauguration in Washington in January is cold and many, many times windy. But most definitely, as soon as he finished the swearing, he's going to go to the cemetery, Arlington Cemetery, together with the other three presidents that are attending this ceremony. We're talking about Clinton, Bush, and Obama, and they're going to deposit a wreath of flowers to the veterans that has died in combat. At the end of this ceremony, he's coming back to the White House. He's going to be signing about 12 executive orders. One of them very important for our audience because it has to be with immigration reform. He's going to eventually facilitate the path to citizenship to the dreamers and the people of the TPS, and also in general people that has known the papers in rule. So most definitely a turn in the page. He wants to absolutely turn the page in many senses with those executive orders of what has been the Trump era, but all that is taking place in what it seems here in Washington, a war zone. 25,000 members of the National Guard are trying to protect the city and the Congress and the White House of possible violence that President Trump has exacerbated through his incendiary speech, and also 2 weeks ago with an attack to the Congress precisely from his extremist and terrorist fans. So it's going to be a busy morning, and we're going to be looking forward to report to you as soon as it happens. Gladys.
Yes, so indeed. We thank our collaborator Jorge Gestoso for his report, and now we continue this news brief. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden has flown to Washington, D.C. ahead of his inauguration this Wednesday. Biden and his wife, Jill Biden, took off from Newcastle Airport in Delaware on Tuesday afternoon, on the eve of this inauguration, with the usual backdrop of celebrations replaced by a military lockdown of the U.S. Capitol. Biden shook up his remarks before departing Delaware, acknowledging that the moment was kind of emotional. Speaking at the National Guard barracks named after his deceased son, Joe Biden, the president-elect said it's deeply personal that our next journey to Washington starts here. Biden will spend the night at Blair House, the guest residence across the street from the White House, one of just a few traditions being honored during the most extraordinary transfer of power in the most Americans' lifetimes. And on the day the United States surpassed 400,000 deaths from COVID-19, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris led a lighting ceremony on the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool as a tribute to those who have died. The ceremony came on the eve of their inaugurations, with the ongoing pandemic said to be the first major challenge facing them as they take office. And 12 U.S. National Guard troops have been pulled from protecting the presidential inauguration of Joe Biden on Wednesday, following an FBI investigation into extremist sympathies within the ranks of the force. According to the Pentagon, 2 of the 12 were removed from duty for making inappropriate comments or text. The removal of the other 10 troops was unexplained, but according to a Pentagon spokesperson, was unrelated to the events at the Capitol or to the concerns regarding extremism.
We have 2 individuals that identified had made inappropriate comments or texts. Those 2 individuals were removed. I'll note one of those was flagged by within the command. And then we have another group of individuals that have been flagged in the vetting process for a number of different reasons, like I said, unrelated to the events here and the concerns that most people have posited.
But I'm not concerned as a large part of our organization. If you look at 25,000, we've had 12 identified, and some of those they're just looking into. It may be unrelated to this, but we want to make sure, out of an abundance of caution, as I stated earlier, that we do the right thing until that gets cleared up.
And a day before the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser appealed for people to stay at home and watch the event virtually. She also said that any National Guard troops who cannot pledge allegiance to their mission should be removed from the Guard, following revelations of extremist tendencies within the force.
I know many people are disappointed, as I am, that we have to enjoy the inauguration. We've asked our fellow Americans to join the inauguration from home and watch the wonderful virtual events that the the president-elect's inauguration committee has planned. Certainly that there is a lot to celebrate, and we know that people are excited to begin this new chapter. But for the health and safety of our country, people are making the right choice to stay at home and watch the events virtually. And so when you have guardsmen and women coming from all over the country at this time, I do think that it is prudent to make sure that they are being vetted, and that anybody who cannot pledge allegiance to their mission and may be pulled by other views needs not only to be removed from this duty, they need to be removed from the guard.
And the U.S. President Donald Trump offered a farewell address this Tuesday as his term in office drew to an end. While he refrained from referring to President-elect Joe Biden by name, Trump extended his best wishes to the new administration.
This week we inaugurate a new administration and pray for its success in keeping America safe and prosperous. We extend our best wishes, and we also want them to have luck, a very important word. Vitalize our alliances.
Meanwhile, in the video message, Trump described his accomplishments and said he worked arduously for the American people. Praising his failed foreign policy, Trump claimed he had rallied the nations of the world to stand up to China like never before. The outgoing president also went as far as to claim that he had been the first U.S. president not to launch any new wars during his term in office, despite the reality. Trump also took credit for a resurgent U.S. economy, even though it has slowed down during the coronavirus pandemic. His only mention for the 400,000 American lives lost to the virus was to say he grieved them and pledged in their memory to wipe out the pandemic once and for all. Despite condemning the violence at the Capitol, which he has sought to distance himself from, Trump stressed, "I want you to know that the movement we started is only just beginning." And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Now, in our program, we receive Jamir Chabur, who is a human rights advocate and activist, also a member of the Red Condor Network. We welcome Jamir.
Hello, pleasure to be on teleSUR.
And we are super pleasure to have you here. So let's start with our moment here alive. So given the context and the circumstances of Biden's swearing-in ceremony, as we know, he inherits a troubled country in terms of migration, health crisis, and environmental policies. Which are the expectations regarding human rights in the U.S. now that Biden is taking office?
Yeah, so today marks the 46th inauguration of the president, Joseph Biden, towards the presidency of the United States. And right now he inherits a country that is extremely polarized. Right now, in regards to human rights, people wait to see the promises that him and Vice President Kamala Harris has promised the people. And these promises of, let's say, what they're going to do about the police, with police brutality, or with immigration. People are waiting to see if they're going to meet those demands of the people, which got them elected in the first place. Like, we have to see if Biden is going to free the children that are in the cages, which Trump put the Central American children fleeing out of economic insecurity. If he's going to free those children. And we have to wait and see. But we, the people here in the United States, have to assert our right, and we have to pressure Biden and the Harris administration to move forward with their promises.
Also, Yamir, we know that 14 days ago, in the very same Capitol steps where Biden will be sworn in, there was a pro-Trump rioters. We know the violent acts that took place there. So in terms of Homeland Security, can you please elaborate for us? How is the domestic security landscape for Biden's administration now?
Yeah, so right now, Washington, D.C. looks like a war zone. It looks like basically like Iraq, where you have green zones and red zones. And this is because of what occurred the 6th of January, the fascist white supremacist insurrection, which the right wingers, whether it's the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the Three Percenters, haven't come out with a statement these last couple of days, but they said they put out their intention that they are planning to do an attack, and these are people who are armed, and as well are infiltrated within the army. So right now, Washington is in high alert to see if these extremists are planning to do anything today in this inauguration.
We have a last question for you, Yamir. So do you consider that Biden's administration will effectively and successfully reverse Trump's damaging policies?
Well, I feel like the Trump I mean the Biden administration might feel like they're canceling Trump, but they are not gonna cancel what Trump represents, which is basically white supremacy and capitalism and U.S. imperialism. You see it evidently with who's coming to the inauguration. You have the fake coup ambassador Carlos Vecchio attending the Biden administration. So that shows a precedence of that Biden's policy, like international policy, like let's say in regards to Venezuela, is not going to change. I mean, and as far as Cuba, neither. I mean, Biden is probably going to attempt more soft powers. So there won't be as much reverse of policy between the Biden administration and the Trump administration, which reminds me of what Malcolm X once said between the Democrats and the Republicans, saying how the Democrats are like foxes and the Republicans are wolves, where you would see the Democrats, the foxes, smile at you before they eat you, and the Republicans, you would see them come already to eat you. So I don't feel that there won't be as much differences. There's going to be just more like smiles in the Biden administration, but we have to wait and see.
You are super right. We'll have to wait and see how the situation develops and how the Biden administration can resolve certain issues. Thank you, Yamir, for your presence and time here in From the South.
Thank you for having me.
So we continue. A truck convoy of oxygen tanks provided by the Venezuelan government arrived in the Brazilian city of Manaus this Tuesday to help authorities tackle the shortage in local hospitals in the midst of a surge in COVID-19 cases. The Venezuelan consul in Boa Vista, in the border state of Roraima, Erigana, offered statements to the press regarding the shipment of humanitarian aid. The Venezuelan government responded to requests from authorities of Manaus, the capital of the state of Amazonas, last week, as the health sector battled to save the lives of those requiring oxygen in the midst of a severe lack of supplies, forcing the transfer of hundreds of patients from Manaus to other states in Brazil. Nearly 6,000 people have died from COVID-19 in the state of Amazonas, where the second wave of the pandemic has hit hard.
I am accompanied by the Consul General. Our mission, our caravan, is a caravan of love and peace for these people, for the population that today is suffering from this terrible pandemic, as it is the COVID-19. In the name of the President of the Republic, Nicolas Maduro Moros, we hand over to the people of Manaus this small help that will save lives, which is what we want. We want to contribute in saving the lives of our brothers here and elsewhere. Venezuela exports peace, exports harmony, and that is what we want. That is why we have come from Venezuela and brought our trucks, because these people, what they need is life and peace. Everything that these people require, our president will study the case and for sure, he will always support the Brazilian people.
And this Tuesday saw a special meeting of the Social Council of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America People's Trade Treaty, focused on the health sector and under the theme United Against COVID-19. The meeting was chaired by ALBA TCP Executive Secretary Sasha Laurenti, who offered the opening remarks of the public session, which saw statements from Health Minister and authorities of member states of the bloc. The authorities continued their discussions on joint strategies to confront the pandemic in a closed-door session before releasing a final statement on the agreements reached. The Executive Secretary of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America People's Trade Treaty, Sasha Laurenti, announced the results of the meeting held to strengthen efforts to address the COVID-19 pandemic.
A humanitarian fund is created, whose objective is to constitute the bank for the acquisition of the ALBA vaccines, as agreed at the 18th Summit of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, as well as the Medicines Bank to help improve access to medical supplies, rapid tests, and PCR tests in favor of all member states.
Speaking during a weekly virtual press conference this Tuesday, the director of the Pan American Health Organization expressed her concern regarding the lack of hospital capacity in the Brazilian city of Manaus, as well as in Peru and the United States.
I am particularly concerned for the next few weeks. Throughout our region, especially in North and South America, many hospitals are operating at or very close to capacity. The reports from Manaus in Brazil illustrate what happens when a health system lacks enough capacity to cope with the speed of new infections. But not just Manaus that is at risk. We've had reports of oxygen being rationed in some locations in the United States of America and in Peru. There are nearly 1 billion people to immunize in our region. The task is daunting, but not unrealistic. It will take many months of hard work, but here in the Americas, we know where to start and we have the resolve to see this through by working together in solidarity and leaving no one behind.
Heavy rains have caused widespread flooding at camps holding internally displaced persons in northwest Syria, killing 1 child and damaging or destroying the tens of thousands of families, according to residents and aid workers. Aid groups Save the Children said a 6-year-old boy was killed in Idlib after the brick wall built around his tent collapsed on top of him, while at least 41,200 others were affected by the storm. A senior United Nations humanitarian official described miserable conditions in the flooded camps in Idlib and other areas. According to authorities, there is more bad weather to come, with forecasts of snow and temperatures dropping to -3 degrees Celsius in the coming days. Idlib is home to about 3 million people, some half of them displaced from other parts of the country by the nearly 10-year U.S.-imposed war.
On our land and had our belongings, but Russia and the regime launched a very large campaign and they shelled everything from stones to trees. We didn't find any place to take refugee, so we were obliged to head to north and settled in the town of Maared Mizrin, in this camp where the tents are home to a lot of suffering. The water flooded the tents. We were suffering. We had to transport the children out of the tents during the night and search for a tent that had a dry ground to stay in, just until morning comes.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.